Okay, so last topic yesterday, what was that? What is political science? Oh, systematic study of affairs of the state. Fair, fair, fair. I think we're talking about how, political science, the father of political sciences, Aristotle. Aristotle is called the father of various things. That fellow had full free time to write all kinds of things. So he's a father of various things. And what is the mother of political science? It was a branch of philosophy, political science. So that was also there. What is meant by subject and what is meant by discipline? Any idea? When does something become a subject? When is it a discipline? No. Discipline as in a discipline of study, not discipline of behavior. What is larger, subject or discipline? Fair. Actually, a branch of study which is taught under a broad category subject, like political science as a subject in social science. Okay. Discipline is primarily an independent body of knowledge. So what has happened is that slowly and steadily, political science, which began as a subject in philosophy, has developed into a full-fledged discipline of its own, with its own facets, own theories, own thinkers, own subjects like comparative politics, like international relations. Okay. So these have slowly become subjects under a discipline of political science. I think that has been the journey for political science also. Let's change our paragraph and write this point or paragraph. Initially, comma, PS, political science. PS began as a subject under philosophy. Initially, comma, PS began as a subject under philosophy, but later evolved into a discipline, with its own methods, comma, theories, comma, thinkers, and subfields. In bracket, right? Like IR, comma, comparative politics, etc. Done? Okay. So on one side in the margin you can also write philosophy dash mother of political science. Philosophy dash mother of PS. So I think there are two broad views of our political science. One is the conventional view, where we say that political science is all about, the state, the government, the institutions, which means that politics means parliament, politics means constitution, politics means possibly elections. The more modern view or the radical view is that politics is not just a study of institutions, it's a study of everything, because power exists everywhere, even in personal relationships. Okay, so I think the radical view is slightly wider, because the radical view questions that why are we only focusing on the study of political science through the lens of these formal structures, whereas in reality, power exists everywhere, in the home, in the school, right? Possibly in gender, in culture, in the social hierarchy. There is no formal structure, but we have a caste system, right? So that is a more radical view of study of political science. So do one thing, make a table, 3 columns or 2 columns, left side right view, right side right core idea. Easier for us to distinguish. Very small column of view, just one word space. Conventional. conventional. And here write PS is equal to study of laws, institutions, state, etc. Second is radical. Radical. So, what is radical? Please write. Politics exists wherever power exists. Politics exists wherever power exists. Like family, culture, gender, etc. Done? So, just a basic idea. For example, if let's say conventional view of study of politics is more like politics is the actors on stage, the parliament, courts, elections. So, we study those actors on stage in a stage show. But the radical view says that no, why only studying those actors? Also study the audience, the script writer, the technical team behind that show, maybe the popcorn vendor outside. He also has a role to play. Okay. Something very simple. The rising cost of food inside cinema halls prevents people from coming into cinema halls. Is it not impacting the performance of the artists there? You give your best performance, people don't turn up to see you. Why? Because the other costs are very high. So everything impacts the real performers, right? Like say a cricket match. The conventional view is that when an IPL match is going on, study the players, observe the players, their ranking, etc., their performance on the field. But that's not true. We have to also study the fans, the stadium, the food pricing there, what kind of fan or goodwill the players carry outside the field, right? Because somebody could perform very poorly in the field, but if they have a great fan following outside the field, more fans come, giving in more money. So that also needs to be studied. So a lot of things need to be incorporated in our study to understand what goes on there on the field. Like say Dhoni, for example. I'm sure you must be Dhoni fans and all. In the last few years, has he performed properly? Of course not. Not to the level of a lot of youngsters, but he pulls the crowd. So that's the whole point. That mere studying of the actor is not sufficient. Mere study of state is not sufficient. We have to study other peripheral things also to understand why state acts in a certain manner. Right? Why judges act in a certain manner? What is the role of these institutions? That is why you have these allegations that the constitution was made by Hindus. Why? Because the Constituent Assembly primarily comprised of Hindus. So you see more Hindu ethos in the constitution. That is the allegation. Not true, allegation. So we have to also understand the minds of the makers. And that's how you can understand why the constitution is so hell-bent on socialistic tendencies. Because at that point of time, the premier makers of our constitution, like Nehru, Patel, etc., they were highly socialist in nature. At least Nehru was. So in his personal life, he believed in the left-wing ideology, which reflects in the constitution. So to study the constitution is not sufficient. Understand what was going on in the minds of makers who wrote those articles. Why have we laid so much of stress on, say, secularism without using the word? So this word was not used originally in the constitution. It was added later on. Why so much of stress? Because of the 1.5 centuries of the issue that we face in the country. So anything that you study in political science requires you to study the peripheral values also. Okay. It is just like variables. The more variables you can incorporate, the more accurate your analysis is going to be. Say right now, we have these elections going on in Bengal and other states. Psephologists. Psephologists are people who study about elections. They're called psephologists. Now, psephologists make all these opinion polls. Who's going to win? They give the seats and all. Some people fail to make the prediction. some make accurate predictions, slightly better. How? There are hundreds of variables. The more variables you consider, better predictions. Like in Bengal, people are predicting that since we'll find out all those seats where BJP lost last time in West Bengal against TMC by a margin of less than 5,000 votes. Small margin loss. Now, because of SIR that has happened, a lot of wrong votes have been lost. And in most cases, the wrong votes are lost for TMC only. So, let's find out firstly all those seats where BJP lost by less than 5,000 votes. In now this time, it is high probability that BJP will win these seats. This is one variable on how to calculate which seats BJP is going to win, possibly. So, the more variables you take into consideration, the better your assumption is going to be. That's how your astrology works. If at all it works, that's also a point. The more variables you consider, for example, let's say studying the fence, a garden, your conservative or conventional view is to, if you want to study the garden, you study the area inside the fence, everything, what's the grass like, etc. But the radical view is we should also study things outside the garden, like the air, possibly the fence, the quality of fence, the animals roaming around, the insects there which fly by, the birds flying over the garden. So this is a peripheral value. The more you incorporate, the better your assumption. Clear? Indian Police Act is slightly harsh. That is true. I also agree on that. But the point is, see, when you reform a law, are you truly giving something new to the country or not is a big question. Reforming a law is a huge challenge. People don't like change. Difficult to change because if you change everything, then you have to change all the structures, related structures. People who are already comfortable in that particular area or domain, they will resist that we know everything now. You are making a new law completely. That becomes a problem. Look at the new BNS. BNS, BNS? The IPC revamped version. It's exactly the same. Just some changes here and there. Broadly, BNS is a cut copy paste exercise. It is not that they have revamped everything. Some words changed here and there. The additions have been numbered properly, up and down. That's what has been done. So ultimately, we are not going to revamp the entire system. So why not contribute the same thing? Maybe make changes there only. So number one reason is comfort. We already were comfortable. And second thing is the law per se is not that bad. The people using the laws are bad. So, which is the case today also, right? And the law is as good as the person implementing the law. That is why we say that with bad laws and good civil servants, country can survive. But with good laws and with bad civil servants, even the best of laws cannot help the country survive. So it's not much about the law, but the civil servant using the law, applying the law. That is more important. So now we knew that it is our own country, own people. So laws might not matter that much. Wherever we find that the law has a draconian provision, it can be eliminated. That's the reason. Right? Okay. See, as we know very well that the focus of conventional view has always been on studying the basic institutions, whereas the focus of the radical view has been on studying society, studying the culture, studying economy, studying the family, etc. And this also helps us understand one very important thing, that power, dominance, exclusion can happen in public area and private area also. And that's how you train people. For example, something as simple as your household chores. Okay. Conventional view is that the political science has no interest in studying who is being forced to work in the household. That is not a part of politics. That's household. But the radical view says that no, who does the cleaning and cooking becomes a part dynamic in the house. Whose task is it to maintain the kitchen, bring the food on the table? Who has this burden? That shows power dynamics in the house. This power dynamics reflects outside also. For example, you go to any workplace, there is this thing called HR policies, right? HR policies, of course, the compliance process, etc. But beyond that, Also, beyond that, also we have certain aspects like what is meant by dress professionally. They won't define it. Dress professionally. Now, what the hell is dress professionally? You're enforcing some gender norms also, right? Like we had the lens cart issue recently. I'm sure you're aware of it. Okay, so very selective kind of behavior. Some religions, symbols being allowed, others not being allowed. So this also is a power dynamic. Untold, unsaid, infringement on personal space. So this is what radical view wants to also cover. That is why this very famous line by feminists called "personal is political." The meaning, this line was coined in 1960s, 70s. The logic was, or the purpose was to highlight all the systemic and systematic exclusion and oppression of certain categories of people in the private space. Maybe we constantly talk about equality of women at workplace, etc. But if you keep on making them suffer in the private space, for something as simple as look at the most humor that men crack is at the expense of their wife. Yes or no? Wife jokes. Why? You might say that this is just humor. Of course, it is just humor. But the other way around would not be liked by people. Right? Imagine the wife cracks a joke on the husband in front of 10 people. The husband's ego gets hurt. How dare she? But he is cracking the joke on his wife. And if the wife is angry, come on, she's always in this anger mode. Never takes the jokes with a pinch of salt. Right? She takes the jokes too seriously. But if you crack a joke on this guy, he becomes upset. Gender roles are being ascribed slowly and steadily. So this is why we say personal is political. Even your personal life is all about politics. It is all about power dynamics. Somebody has upper hand, somebody is weak. A classic example is domestic violence. If state does not take care of personal space, then domestic violence should also be allowed. Because that's your personal problem. After all, a husband slaps the wife, so what? You can see so many videos being shot now. People go and ask the people on the road, is it okay for the husband to slap the wife? They say, if the wife misbehaves, what kind of logic is it? And what if the husband misbehaves? Then is it okay for the wife to slap the husband? Then no, then there's a problem. So if you want violence, let it be equal. That is not justified. So domestic violence is a problem. As I said, reproductive rights, that's a concern. Okay. Meaning, how many or women, do they actually have control over their abortion? If the man wants the child, the woman has to bear the child, or else abortion. Use of contraceptives. Okay. Men would not use contraceptives. Why? Because there is no loss to them. No use of contraceptive by a man is no loss to the man. What has he gotten to lose? Nothing. Woman has to bear the burden of rearing or bearing the child for the next 9 months. So that's also a problem, right? So how can we ignore this power dynamics in personal space? Personal is also political. That is the idea, right? So politics is everywhere. For example, LGBTQ rights, transgender rights primarily, right? In the case of transgender rights, personal identity, relationships, etc. Why does the state get to decide what kind of relationship is a natural relationship? You'll be surprised to know, till 2017, Joseph Shine case and all, adultery was a criminal offense. I mean, adultery being a criminal offense itself is a problem. Why should the personal discord of family force someone to be sent to jail? You know, adultery? Adultery means extramarital affair, which is very common nowadays. It was actually a criminal offense. So the person involved in committing adultery, the male, if you, let's say, have a relationship with somebody else's wife, you could be jailed for up to 2 years. Okay. Women would not be punished, just to clarify. It is based on a different Victorian concept. We'll discuss it some other point of time. So that is there. LGBTQ rights, the section 377. Section 377 of IPC said that any kind of sexual activity between consenting adults also, or children or animals, is unnatural. So same-sex adults, children and animals, the sexual activity is called unnatural. Who decides what is unnatural? Children, we understand, that is called pedophilia, pedophiles. That is a mental disease only properly. Or animals, if you have sex with animals, that is called bestiality. Of course, wrong. Why? Because animals and children have no right to consent. Children under 18 cannot give right to consent. They don't understand the consequence of it. Same goes for animals. So it is wrong. But two consenting adults, why should we call that an unnatural sexual activity? What defines natural? Same-sex relationships. Why should state tell us where to and how to have a sexual relationship? This is a problem, right? Also, something as simple as privacy, surveillance. To what extent are you okay with the state interfering in your personal space? Right now, you are demanding that there should be end-to-end encryption in WhatsApp, or else I will not use that particular social media platform if there is no encryption. Why? Because state might read my messages. Because of all the cringe-worthy messages we send, the state might come to know how cheesy we are in our personal life. So my point is, there is a debate. Surveillance is important, but privacy is also important. It took our courts almost, should I say, 67 years to incorporate right to privacy as a part of fundamental rights. 2017, in 2017, in one judgment, Puttaswamy case, the Supreme Court finally said that right to privacy is a part of right to life. Before that, we have seen that the government has blatantly abused right to privacy. There is no privacy. In fact, in this judgment also, when the case was going on, the government said that why do you want to have things private? And this was government's logic. Anybody trying to keep things private has something to hide. That's not true always. You just would like privacy also. Not everybody whose mobile phone is locked is doing something wrong. It could be to maintain their personal privacy also. But this is government's logic. That if people who want privacy have something to hide, it's such a wrong argument. The paternalistic approach of state acts like some kind of benign father who interferes everywhere, wants full control over the citizen as a child. So this is also the problem. That is why we say the personal is political. Okay, this line will come across you multiple times. Carol Hanisch has mentioned this statement, a very beautifully mentioned statement. Write the heading now. I'll just mention some points about it. Please write. The heading is "The personal is political." The personal is political. Dash Carol Hanisch, Hanisch. So, in 1969, this lady wrote an essay called "Personal is Political" and became very popular as a line by feminists. A lot of these feminists, not the Instagram fake feminists, the genuine ones, the first wave feminists and all, who demanded equality at workplace. Then slowly the second wave of feminism said that no, the feminism that you are demanding at workplace is a very selective kind of feminism. Because workplace feminism does not translate to household equality. So came this line, "The personal is political." Okay, right below that. Now, meaning. What is the meaning? Private aspects of life, like family roles, comma, personal relationships, etc., are are influenced by broader political and social structures. Broader political and social structures. Change of paragraph now. Next paragraph, right? Roots. So what is the origin of this statement? Roots dash emerged from feminist movements. Feminist movements in 1960s-70s. Emerged from feminist movements in 1960s, 70s to highlight how personal experiences reflect systemic oppression. Systemic, S-Y-S-T-E-M-I-C, systemic oppression, O-P-P-R-E-S-S-I-O-N, oppression, full stop. Third now, traditional gender roles, comma, domestic division of labor and family dynamics are shaped by patriarchal norms. Sustained by political power. Below that, write examples. Domestic violence. Now, domestic violence historically seen as private matter. It is now that we have, now meaning last 1 or 2 centuries, that we are recognizing this as a legal intervention requirement, right? So that is one thing. Second point, please write. LGBTQ plus rights. So this refers to personal identity and definition of normal. What is a normal behavior? Okay, and see, words also have discrimination. For example, to all of you here, I mean, if we meet in an informal setup, I might ask you, do you have a girlfriend? Do you have a girlfriend? Is a perfect normal question. If I ask you, do you have a boyfriend? You feel offended. Oh, what do they think of me? But that's also normal only, right? I mean, because we've been ingrained to believe that there is something wrong with that fellow, associating masculinity It has been taught to us like this. In some other countries, that is okay. You can ask this question. In today's generation, Gen Z, you can ask this question. They might not feel offended, right? That's how they've grown up, being exposed to. The same question, do you have a girlfriend, could be very upsetting to our parents. If you ask them when they were in the college and school, they'll go crazy. What the hell is all this? Now it is acceptable. But see how language discourse happens. Only two genders being referred. This is the identity problem. Okay. Then third example, right? Reproductive rights. Reproductive rights. Reproductive rights dash abortion rights. Abortion rights. Use of contraceptives, etc. Use of contraceptives, etc. So like in USA, you have this debate going on, pro-choice. I mean, why should there be a debate is the question. Okay. The debate in the sense that if a woman, say, wants to give birth, whose problem is it? Is it the society's problem or the woman's personal choice? That's a debate. Now, the real concern is you can't have a debate like this, because then you will look like a fool saying that the society should control whether you should give birth or not. So a debate cannot be like this. We modify the terms of debate. What do? Woman claims that I have my body, my right. So I will counter it by saying that no. You are killing a fetus. You are killing a living being. That is society's problem. See how society tries to interfere in your personal space. So when you are going out and roaming around, then society might claim that, see, you are doing some immoral activity which might impact the society at large. You might say, this is my personal life. If I am roaming around with my girlfriend, what is your problem? No, society says, no, of course, it's a personal life. But your behavior can impact my kid sitting in the house. So I have to regulate your behavior. These are ways in which society regulates us. That's the problem, right? One more example, last one. Privacy versus surveillance. Privacy versus surveillance. So to what extent can the state interfere in our personal domain? Especially in today's day and age, the government surveillance keeps on increasing. The government wants data on everything, and still we have fake accounts, scams. I don't know where the focus of government is, right? So sadly, despite so much of protection being offered, still the government wants these companies to open up. So you have all these VPNs and all. The ones you use, not the pathetic ones. The good VPNs, which are paid versions, Surfshark, etc., NordVPN and all the paid versions. A lot of these companies, they don't exist in India. Why? Government regulation. If you are setting up a business in India, you have to share all your data with the government. These VPN companies are based on this premise only, that I will not share my customers' data with the government agencies. Whatever website you access, they have a detail of it, right? The government of our country says, share this with us. And that is why these companies have moved out of India. Because we can't work in this environment. So they don't have their servers in India, which is a huge loss to us. Setting up of servers, etc. can be a huge bonus. Not just in terms of revenue generation, but also data inside our country. See, data is the new oil today. What is Facebook, Meta and Alphabet, Google, what do they control? Data. That's what they control, right? Algorithm works on this only, right? You can know your personality through your Google account. Everything is being tracked. That way the first step is to switch off every tracking thing in your Google ID. Go to your Google profile and please switch off all the tracking. Ad tracking, your Google Maps tracking, if it is on, this means that wherever you are going, your Google Maps stores information of it, which can be accessed even 5 years later. So your parents don't know this, sadly. They should be taught this, that you can access your kids' whereabouts every day. If they know, your life will be hell. So you can switch it off, and you should switch it off. Why should your personal data be revealed to companies? They can misuse it, and they misuse it. That's how, when you want to purchase something, let's say a hard disk or a laptop or a mobile phone, you search for it, and then every website you open, on the corner, the same mobile phones ad, same hard disk ad. It keeps pushing because data is being stored. So data is the new oil, and we are so casual about it because we want complete control over our citizens. We want to know what citizens are watching, etc. This is a problem. To what extent should the government be allowed surveillance? See, if surveillance was allowed and there was complete security, great. Security is zero. Scams are at a high level, right? But still the government wants surveillance. This is a problem. If we are giving up surveillance, no privacy, but at least offer security in return. We are giving up our privacy but getting nothing in return. That's a problem. Okay. Anyway, so UPSC has asked questions on this as well with respect to what is the personal is political. It's a very popular statement, especially in the feminist movement, right? So always remember, politics is personal also. Okay. Next heading, right? Political thought. See, Indian companies, if they store data, for them it is mandatory. If you're using some other services, you're already accepting the terms and conditions that this data will be shared with other organizations. If I don't accept the conditions, I can't use them. That's the sad part. So for Indian companies, it is mandatory. But these are foreign companies. So if I'm using their services, I have to, based on whatever their conditions are, I have to reveal my data. That is the basic difference. So it is only meant for Indian companies. That is why if these kind of VPN companies were still based in India, then they would continue to be, the data would be made accessible to government. That is the problem. So they moved out. Simple. Okay, in short. Okay, what exactly is thought? Tell me. Personal belief. Possible, right?
An experience turned into intuition.
Oh, we define thought with the word thought. Great. What is thought? Personal belief, you said. Experience. Okay. Anything else? What is meant by thought? Very simple.
Or expressions based on our surroundings.
Expressions based on surroundings. See, thought is basically a reflective and a very reasoned kind of understanding. When you understand an idea or a concept, that idea could be a moral idea, that idea could be a religious idea, a social idea. When you understand that and think about it in depth, that is what becomes your thought. So a very reasoned understanding of ideas is what is thought. Okay. And then think of it like this. Let's say, the thought would be your brain slowly chewing onto something properly. Okay. It's like slow cooked dum biryani. That is the idea of thought. When you reminisce on some kind of concept, an idea for long, think about the pros and cons, and then develop an understanding about it, that is thought. So what is political thought? Tell me. Political thought is the exact same thing. Reflective and critical understanding of political ideas, like justice. You will be studying about all these ideas. That is why political thought, know what is political thought, and then study about political thoughts like justice, liberty, equality. These are political ideas. We sit and think about what could justice be, when is justice happening, what kinds of justice are there, retributive justice, right? Affirmative justice, reformative justice, distributive justice. kinds of justice. To what extent should justice be done? For past wrongs, justice now, is it justified? How much of justice or how late of justice is not too late of justice? When you keep on thinking about these and develop a proper idea, that is what is a political thought on justice. Same could be political thought on equality. So this is a idea of political thought. Okay, please write. Reflective and critical understanding. Reflective and critical understanding of ideas related to power, justice, liberty, democracy, equality, etc. Next point, right? It includes both ancient and modern reflections. Okay, and see, political thought will have both aspects. There are two ways to understand political thought. One is the normative idea. Now, what is meant by normative? What is normative? Normative is based on norms. What should be, what ought to be, that is normative. So we also think about values. What is the right thing to do, right? What's the right kind of society? And political thought is also descriptive in nature. Descriptive meaning what is, what ought to be, the ideal situation. Normative. Descriptive, I am describing what is the situation right now. So political thought covers both these things. We have to incorporate what is the right kind of idea and what is the idea existing in society today. That's called wholesome study, right? That's how you can compare also. If I don't know what is the right value system, then how will I describe or analyze whether the current value system is right or not? Okay. Next point, right? It includes, or right, wait. It is normative, and in bracket you can write like this. Ideal. What ought to be. And descriptive. What is. So that's the difference. Thought and political thought. Okay. Thought could be what ice cream, or should we eat ice cream or not? Or what flavored ice cream should I eat right now in this hot weather? Political thought would be reflecting on why are we eating ice cream in society right now? Is everybody able to purchase ice cream? What flavor of ice cream is being purchased by which category of people? Are the rich also able to eat cheesecake or not? Poor, right? Is kulfi an ice cream or not? These are all parts of political thought. Detailed understanding of nuances of thoughts. Okay. So see, when you talk about any kind of, say, modern thinkers, ancient thinkers, they have all been political thinkers. Why? Because they understand the idea of justice. Plato, Aristotle, Kautilya, etc. They talk about equality. They talk about justice. They talk about value system. They talk about what is right, what is wrong. There is a concept called philosopher king. You know, have you heard of philosopher king? Who is a philosopher king? Who gave the idea of philosopher king? Plato. Plato in his Republic has mentioned that, you know, the ideal state is a state which is ruled by a philosopher king. King should be a philosopher. Right? But it has been codified by Plato in Republic. So codification is what we count normally, right? That is why we say rule of law is given by Albert Wynne Dicey in 19th century. Rule of law is a very old idea, but that's how we attribute it to people who have codified it properly. So that's one thing. Like in our country also, Ambedkar has given us reflection on what is social justice, affirmative action, to what extent should we have it, or should we have it or not in the first place, right? So this is all political thought, reflecting in depth on these ideas. Okay. Next, right? Nature of political science. Nature of political science. So political science has 4 different aspects. One, of course, is normative, right? Meaning what ought to be. What is the ideal form of government? As I said, Plato talked about the philosopher king, or Gandhiji talked about grassroots democracy, communitarian values, people governing themselves, village-based economy. That was his point of view, that this is the ideal society for me. Normative. So political science also has normative aspect. Political science also has descriptive aspect. What is? So if I start studying about the current institutions, how does the court function right now? What is democracy right now? How does Indian democracy work? What is the party system in India? What is the party system in USA? This is descriptive political science, because I am just studying what is the situation right now. I'm not judging whether Indian party system is good or bad. All I'm saying is what it is right now. Third is empirical. Empirical based on what? Data. So when I say empirical, I will base my study on data, behavior, observation. For example, surveys, these opinion polls, what are they? Empirical study. I go and ask 10 people, who did you vote for? And based on those 10 people, I extrapolate that this particular constituency has voted for this party. Of course, we can't have accurate empirical data. That is impossible in large democracies. But that's how we collect data. Any kind of policy that you launch, the first step is collecting data. There is this term called pilot project. What is pilot project? You launch the project in a small area, localized area. You get data from it. What went wrong? What was great about it? What are the loopholes? What are the real-time issues that people faced? Once I get that data, and then I can work on it, maybe resolve those problems and launch countrywide the project. Okay. So it is empirical also. And fourth, it is interdisciplinary. The study or nature of political science is interdisciplinary. Now, why do I say this? Because political science draws from history, it draws from sociology, it draws from economics, it draws from law also. Something as simple as, let's say, how a party with BJP right now, some original members, some from Congress, some from TMC have come, some from NCP have come, all crossovers meet at this party only. That is what political science is. We are going to study the impact of GST in the country. Okay. We are going to study about the view of various ideologies on modern Indian national movement. We are also going to study about the constitutional law, the legal aspects. We are also going to study about the society, how caste hierarchy affects politics, right? Sociological aspect. Upper caste votes for which kind of party and why? Dalit perspective on politics is what? Political science. So the nature of political science is that it is interdisciplinary in nature. It covers a larger ground than other subjects. Okay. So please write the heading. Have you mentioned that? Nature of political science. Okay. Number 1, normative. Normative dash what ought to be. What ought to be. So when I say normative, I mean to say it comes from the word what? Norm. Norm means standard. You can write in your margin. This is a meaning of this word. Standard. So normative dash what ought to be, in bracket, right? Ideal form of government. Ideal form of government. Second, descriptive. Descriptive dash what is. What is, question mark, in bracket, right? Realities of institutions and practices. Realities of institutions and practices. Third one, empirical. Empirical, study of or based on data, comma, behavior, based on data, comma, behavior, comma, observations, in bracket, right? Surveys, stats, voter turnout, etc. This is how polity is related. In your mains exam, they have asked questions on this aspect. Determinants of voter behavior. What are the factors behind which or based on which voters vote in the country? Determinants of voter behavior. That's also political science. So section B is just the application of what political science is. And the fourth one, number 4, interdisciplinary. INTER, interdisciplinary, single word. DISCIPLI NARY. Interdisciplinary. Give a dash and write. Draws from economics, comma, sociology, comma, history, comma, law, etc. In bracket, right? Example, evaluating impact of demonetization. Evaluating impact of demonetization. So now we are just knowing all these terms, what they mean, etc. In this regard, see, a very important, just a passing reference here, it is also very important for all of us to know about public affairs. The study of political science is not just, should not just be limited to only people who are interested in the field. Politics should be known by everyone. It is very important. I think maybe last year or something, there's this very famous comedian. He made a statement that, men make fun of women because women don't like politics, they don't have knowledge of politics. That is not the right way to say things. Women also know a lot of things. They know a lot about makeup. They know a lot about these things. Do you know about makeup? Everybody has own interests. Argument looks nice. Yes or no? This is classic performative feminism. So now we have this emerging group of people who are performative feminists, who perform and pretend to be feminists. This is a very stupid argument. Everybody should know about politics, especially women who are suffering on day-to-day basis. They should know about politics, how this works, what is the right step, etc. What kind of rights do I have, right? Knowing about extra things, great, but knowing about politics is very important. There is a beautiful quote by Plato. Please write this quote and we'll move to political theory, right? The price of apathy towards public affairs, the price of apathy, APATHY, apathy towards public affairs, the price of apathy towards public affairs is to be ruled by evil men. Evil men dash Plato. What does it mean? What is apathy? There's a very popular term called voter apathy. Apathy means what? Disinterest. So the price of disinterest towards political affairs, if you have no interest on political affairs, you will not go out to vote maybe, you will not raise your voice, then what happens? Evil men take over and you show disinterest. That is why, the mark of a degrading society is when people exit the system. Exiting the system. How? Let's say, simplest of example. It is a duty of the government to provide safe and clean drinking water. Yes or no? Government does not. Okay. You have no trust on their water they provide. So what do? You purchase an RO filter in your house. Rather than questioning the government that you fools, I want clean water, it's my right. You say, let it be here. I'll purchase a water purifier and I'll exit the system. My problem is solved. Who will go to the municipal corporation office and fight with them uselessly? That is called exiting the service. Middle class, upper middle class, etc., they simply exit the system. Where they cannot exit, they crib, like roads. You can't exit the roads. For that also, they might take a plane for certain cases. So the more the people exit the system, the easier it is for the politicians to enjoy life. So never ever exit the system. We can solve our own problems, but that is not the point here. That is why the price of apathy towards public affairs is that ultimately evil, wicked men will come to power and then it's difficult to change them. Then suddenly after 20 years you realize, oh, now I have given up too much. I need to reclaim all that. That's too late then. Right? This is the problem. Anyway, next heading is political theory. Political theory. Very simple, right below that. It is a study of ideas, concepts. It is a study of ideas, concepts and principles that help us understand and evaluate politics. That help us understand and evaluate politics. Just a small point and a question to you. How do you differentiate between theory and science and law? Tell me. What is a theory? Which is not proven. Okay, set of ideas that we have to explain any kind of point of view. We try to have some ideas where we can explain something. For example, explaining political ideas like justice. So there's a very famous theory of justice, John Rawls' theory of justice. Then what is science? Science is systematic study. Systematic study using methods, observation, comparison. So behavioralism, that's scientific in nature. And then what is law? Law we know very well. Something which is universally tested and proved principle. That is what is called a law, right? So we have the Newton's law, for example, or we have the very famous in this political science, iron law of oligarchy. Michel's iron law of oligarchy. We'll be covering this also. There's a mains question on this as well. So that's a difference. Political science is part theory, part science. Always understand this point. Why part theory? Because in political science we are studying about theories. See, set of ideas that explain the behavior of the political structure. That's what we are studying. Sometimes we collect data also, voter turnout data, surveys, etc. So the science part is there, partly, but it is never a law actually, because we do not have universal principles. Because universal principles will be based on hundreds of factors which are beyond our control. India has democracy. Pakistan also has democracy. Whether you believe it or not, it does. So does USA. Do they function in the same fashion in these three countries? Of course not. France has a republic. India has a republic. Difference. You know, we always say there is this law called Duverger's law. We'll study later on. Just a basic understanding. Wherever you have first past the post system, you know, first past the post. What is that? First past the post. Whoever gets the highest votes is the winner. In every country which follows first past the post system, it always ends up into a two-party system. Think about it. Don't just trust me immediately. Think. If the country has first past the post system, it always ends up having what? Two-party system. Why? What is the alternative of first past the post? Proportional representation. Okay. Proportional representation means what? In the same proportion you get the seats. I'll give you a simple example of what happened in your state, Andhra Pradesh. If you observe the 2024 elections of Andhra Pradesh, how many seats did TDP win? I think 140, 150, something like this. Large number of seats, right? How many did YSR win? 11. Have you seen the percentage of votes that they obtained? YSR got, I think, 39 or 40% votes. Very less difference between YSR and TDP. It is not that TDP got 90% votes, but TDP got 90% seats, 80% seats. Yet the votes were difference was very less. YSR got almost 40% votes in the state. But the problem is that even if you get 40% votes, somebody gets 41%, he is a winner. Right? In proportional representation, if that was the case in our country, let's say we have something called proportional representation. System of PR. So, at center, we have BJP, we have Congress, we have BRS. Let's also show them some respect. Now, it might so happen that BJP is winning, say, with 40% votes. BJP last time won how many seats? Almost 50% seats on its own. In fact, 60% seats. And Congress had 20% votes. But Congress only won 10% seats. Okay. And smaller parties had 1 or 2% votes, did not win a single seat. Okay. But if we have proportional representation, what will it mean? BJP has won 40% votes. This means out of 543 seats in the Lok Sabha, 40% seats will go to which party? BJP. 20% seats will go to which party? Congress. Just like in your state, you are saying that in Telangana, YSR got how many seats? 11 seats. But the vote percentage of YSR, let's assume, was 40%. If you follow this system, YSR should get how many seats then? 40% of 175. Around 70 seats. At least. Now we have a first past the post system. In first past the post system, smaller parties which win 1, 2, 3% votes, they have zero chance of winning any seat. You agree on this? Now the mentality of people is that they never want to vote for the loser because they feel my vote is wasted. Okay? So if they feel that my favorite candidate is not going to win the election, either they will vote for somebody who can win or they will not vote at all. Are you clear? So slowly and steadily, the smaller parties will have no say. They'll keep on getting less and less votes because they are not a formidable opponent. Nobody has trust on them. And what happens then? Two parties emerge. The smaller parties get sidelined, ultimately become too small to have any difference in the politics. That is why first past the post always ends up in what? Two-party system. USA, UK. That is called Duverger's law. But not in India. In India, Duverger's law fails. Because in India, they have forgotten we also have caste. We also have language. We also have regional parties. Okay. So here, religion is a very, very important factor. Caste is a very important factor. Language is a very important factor. People might still vote for their linguistic community, their caste community. Okay? That is why you see regional parties are still standing strong. In other countries, they have become very negligible. In USA, there are two parties. It's not that there are only two parties, there are multiple parties. But other parties are so small that they have negligible significance in politics. Same goes for UK also. So a concept which is acceptable world over fails in India. Political science is rarely a law because of variables. That is my point of view to prove that there is no universal law that applies everywhere in political science. It is not possible. Okay. Now, why do we call it science? Is because we still incorporate scientific methods to understand politics, like voter behavior, turnout, etc. Voter turnout shows either faith in the system or belief in the election process. Why do people turn out to vote? Because they believe that they can change the dynamics of the game, right? This is again an observation. Why do people go and file cases in court? Despite knowing very well that in Supreme Court average delay is 4 years. They have faith in the justice system. They believe in the idea that Supreme Court is supreme. So based on your behavior and data collected, we can still analyze some things. That is why political science, the word science is used. Partly theory, partly science. Okay. Right there, please. Next line. It examines fundamental questions about governance, power, justice, governance, power, justice, and role of state. Done. Now change of paragraph and write. Political science is part theory, part theory, comma, part science, but rarely law. But rarely law. Write a subpoint below that. In the same point you wrote a subpoint. It is because human behavior is complex. It is because human behavior is complex, unpredictable, and value heavy. And give a dash. hence no universal laws. Hence no universal laws.
So in India also there are two party systems like BJP and INC. Rest of the parties are small. Even central.
But they have a very important role to play. I mean, if not for TDP and JDU, we'd not have a government, right? And what is meant by a small party? Congress has 99 seats. Samajwadi Party has 35 seats. How can you call it small? Last time Congress had 50 seats, right? So, and before that Congress had 52 seats. So should we really call it a two-party system? It is a single-party system actually. Only BJP had more than 300 seats. But before that, multiple parties came together to form a government. So India has gone through various stages, from single-party dominance of Congress to rise of regional parties, dependence on regional parties suddenly in between, again back to Congress dominance in 80s, back to coalition in 1990s, unstable coalition. We'll discuss that under section B. And then again in the entire 2000s, back to proper coalition politics. In fact, India has transitioned. So you should understand this also, maybe details later on. From 1950 to 70s, single party dominance. Single party dominance. Then 1970s, we saw the rise of regional parties. Then 1980s, we went back to single party dominance. Are you aware that in 1984 elections, Rajiv Gandhi won 415 seats? BJP's dream this time was ab ki baar 400 par, which Rajiv Gandhi had achieved. Whatever reasons, emotional voting, that is separate, achieved. Then came 1990s, which was a time of unstable coalitions. Because India had not had coalition governments, we did not really understand how to make a coalition work. Everybody wanted everything. That if one party is there, they say, no, we want everything. We want all the important ministries. Became a problem. It was only from 1999 to 2014 that we have seen stable coalition. Firstly, BJP ran a coalition government for 5 years. Then Congress ran for 10 years. Again, we were back to single party dominance for 10 years. Again, we are back to coalition politics. Right? So we have not had a two-party system like that. When I'm talking about USA, when I say Republican Party and the Democratic Party, that's it. The other parties, Libertarian Party, Green Party, they get less than 1% votes. No value at all. That's the difference I'm referring to. Here, all these parties have strong say. We have seen Indra Kumar Gujral becoming the PM of India. And that fool became the Prime Minister of India. And gave us Gujral Doctrine also, which you have to study in your exam because of how amazing the doctrine is or how stupid it is. You know, some people have, and their carelessness has resulted in huge loss to our country. Some deliberate, some because of their stupidity. Because of Morarji Desai's stupidity, I would say. Honest intentions. Morarji Desai informed Pakistan about certain aspects because of which the raw agents were killed in Pakistan. Because of his information, raw agents were tortured and killed. He is responsible for the death of raw agents. Indra Kumar Gujral, based on his Gujral doctrine, he forced RAW to shut down its desk offices in Pakistan, because of which there was information gap in our country about Pakistan's movements, the result of which was the Kargil war. because we had no raw officers there to work, and there was information gap on the movement of military, their plans, etc. We lost our lives of these soldiers. Hamid Ansari, the former VP of India, I don't know, but former agents and intelligence officers claim that Hamid Ansari gave a list of names of Indian secret agents serving in Iran, and they were found out and murdered. This is true. You can find out all these former officers have mentioned on social media about Hamid Ansari. I'm sure he had some ulterior motive only, but sometimes honest mistakes, sometimes stupidity, sometimes wrong motives. Anyway, so we saw Devegowda becoming the Prime Minister of India for a few months. Those were unique times. Anyway, so this is about political theory. So now we have to understand the two types of political theories. So write the heading now. Two major types of political theory. So basically, political theory is being studied through these angles. One is the normative angle, which is how things should be, and second is imperative angle, meaning descriptive, fact-based. So do one thing. Let's draw a table. First column, very small type. Second column, normative. Third column, empirical. Table will be easy for us to memorize. So, aspect, keep it very small, just 10% of the page. Normative political theory. Empirical political theory. We'll just write it and then we'll discuss in detail tomorrow one by one. Done? Okay. First aspect is nature. So when we are studying normative political theory, what is the nature of it? Prescriptive, value-based. It gives a prescription of how things should be. So we call it prescriptive in nature. It prescribes how the structure should be in society. What does good governance look like? Prescriptive, meaning value-based. Empirical study of political theory is more descriptive. We collect data and we tell people what the reality is right now in the country. So what is it based on? Description or facts? Facts based. Then next aspect, approach. Approach. So what is a approach here? How do we study this theory? Based on morals. What is the right way to approach things? What is the ethical way of politics? The philosophy. So the approach to studying political theory in the normative form is morals. Philosophical. This is what is the focus. How things are going to be. What is the ethical way of governing the nation? What is the ethical way of contesting elections? But what is the approach with respect to descriptive? How do we understand political theory in a description format? Scientific studies. Mention approach. Scientific, data driven. Scientific, data driven. So this is based on data driven. Then what is the methodology used? Methodology. So normative, if you have to study about the structure of society, we understand what? Logic, reasoning, ethical arguments. Should we not have reservation in the country? Normative. The right way would be that we should have reservation for people who are economically backward. Logical argument. Understand? They have lesser resources. So when I say that we should have some kind of values, then I am basing it on logic. I am basing it on reasoning. I am basing it on ethics. And here the method uses what? Conduct surveys, collect some kind of field data. No, we go out and collect more data, and based on the data, we further analyze and give you the idea of how things are right now. Okay. Add one more last aspect, purpose. Purpose. So what is the purpose, do you think, of having a normative political theory? Political theory is a study of our institutions and all. What is the purpose of normative political theory? Why are we trying to find out what is an ideal form of justice? Why are we trying to find out how should power be used in the country? What's the reason?
To compare the current situation.
To compare, okay, fair. Compare and then what? Do what?
And try to reach that.
The idea is to guide action. We want to set a standard that this is the correct standard and let's achieve that. So please write. The last aspect is purpose, and write under normative, to guide action, comma, to guide action, comma, design better systems. Design better systems. Clear? And why do we study the political theory with data as to what it is right now? To understand reality. Okay? And how much journey we have to cover. So please write here the purpose. What is that? To understand and explain political reality. To understand and explain political reality. Clear? Okay. That's about it. Let's end here only. Let's meet tomorrow. Tomorrow we'll cover the detailed understanding of the definition of political theory in the normative structure, empirical structure, etc. and we'll move forward. Tomorrow is actually Thursday. Okay. 2 more classes. Saturday we'll do some writing exercise. It will be easy for us. Let me also see where you stand in the writing exercise. I have no clue as to where you stand. So small paragraph to write, and then we can have a better estimate of where you stand. Okay. Any doubts, issues, concerns? No? Okay. Then let's meet tomorrow. Jai Hind.
So Saturday also same time.
Timing is the same. It's just a class, but for us, we'll just follow different pattern.